I moved to Berlin at 18 years old to pursue a career as a musician. For someone who hasn't done something like that, it might sound like the most crazy, random thing to do, but it wasn't. It was the result of a lot of unfortunate events, actually. When I was 13 years old, I had a lot of knee pain. Finally, we found a specialist, and he explained to me that I had this knee condition that made my cartilage quite brittle. And that meant that I wasn't able to do sport anymore. Now, for a 14-year-old kid, that's pretty shit. I was into jiu-jitsu, I was surfing, I was skating, I was hiking. I loved to be active. I spent a good year doing nothing. After a year of that, I kind of had jack of it and decided to go back to sport, because I thought, well, if I can strengthen my legs, it'll be fine. I was on a school hiking trip and I heard a pop in my knee, which wasn't that uncommon. It happened a lot. But when I woke up the next morning, my leg was huge, quite a strange color. My friends had to pull me out of my tent, had to help me go to the bathroom to brush my teeth and everything. Once we got back to the city, I went and got an MRI and was told that I had to have 2 knee surgeries. Those 2 knee surgeries ended up being almost a year of recovery, crutches. When you're a teenager and you don't go to school for a year or so, you lose a lot of your friendships, relationships. After that year, I was walking again. I was slowly considering the idea of going back to sport and building my life. And a similar thing happened, but this time in my left knee. They ended up doing a preventative surgery with less recovery, but it was the same situation again. And on the same day that I found out that I had to have another knee surgery, I was also diagnosed with cancer. Now, in the end, it wasn't cancer, but they performed the same surgery, the same procedures that they would have performed if it had been. They were under the impression that it hadn't spread, but that was a really difficult month. They pushed back the knee surgery in order to do the cancer surgery first. And shortly after that, who would have thought it? I had another 2 knee surgeries. In the end, I ended up having 5 knee surgeries and this cancer procedure. At that point, I think I was 16 or 17 and I was broken. I decided I wanted to finish school. I wanted to be a psychologist because it was a sort of job that would pay well and that I was interested in, but would still leave some room for me to still be a drummer when I wanted to. And after 10 weeks, 1 term of trying to catch up and study and get back to where I was, I broke down. I didn't really want to be around my friends. I didn't really have many friends anymore. I couldn't force myself to do work, which is not a thing that usually happens with me. Part of the reason I talk about procrastination so much here is because I only procrastinate when something's wrong. I'm not the sort of person who can't get work done. At that point, the deputy principal pulled me aside and said, "You've been through a lot. You've missed a lot of school. Why don't you consider taking a year off?" And I hated the idea. I hated the idea that I was falling behind. I hated the idea that these health issues that had nothing to do with me, that I didn't do anything to cause, were now controlling my life. But I also had to face the fact that I didn't have a choice. I couldn't do the work. I left school, moved out with my dad near the water in Sydney, Australia. I was taking that time. I had started to build myself up again. I had gotten a schedule together. I was exercising. I was doing the things that I wanted to do. I was taking drums really seriously because it was something I could put energy into. It was something that was progressing. I was on the bus on the way home one day and I realized these things that happened to me, they could have been worse. Life is so short. You never know what's going to happen. Everybody runs around with this "that would never happen to me" mentality, when really it can happen to anybody. Health issues, death, these are parts of life. And the only thing you can do against it is try to live the best life you can. Why don't I just try to be a drummer? So I did. I started going to sessions in Sydney. I was practicing a couple hours a day, getting lessons off the best people I could find. And I tried to apply to the Sydney Conservatorium of Music, but they wouldn't take anybody who hadn't finished high school. And then my dad said to me on a random evening in January of 2022, "Why don't you study somewhere else? Why don't you go study in Europe?" That blew my mind. I was so confused. You want me to leave? You want me to go and study on the other side of the planet? I'm 17 years old and I have to go study now. I didn't know what to say. But very quickly I realized it was the sort of goal that I needed at that point in my life. The sort of goal that would give me something to work on, because I didn't have anything to work on. I hadn't had anything to work on for years. So we did some research and we realized that the best place to study in Europe seemed to be Berlin. It seemed like it had a great scene. The uni had a very good reputation. And so at 17, I started planning moving to Berlin by myself. I started learning German. I started practicing way harder. I started getting piano lessons and trying to understand what they expected me to understand at this uni. which was almost triple what they expected me to understand at the uni in Australia. I started working like 40-hour weeks at a pizza restaurant, on a pizza truck, and at a bunch of different cafes, and I ended up saving like 10 grand over that year. I started working on a visa and getting my Greek passport. In the middle of that year, I bought the plane ticket, booked an Airbnb, and I moved to Berlin.